Hello and welcome to the 2021 Developer Insight Series webinar, The Impact of COVID-19 on Property Preferences. My name is Candice Hickmott and I'm the WA Estate Manager at realestate.com.au. Today, I am lucky enough to be joined by three special guests, Braun, David Nicholls and Barry Du Bois. Greg is the Senior Market Research Manager here at REA. He's a forward-thinking and multidisciplinary researcher who will be taking us through some of the key insights found in the 2021 New Home Buyers Research. David is the Commercial Director at PPG Industries, who own Taubman's Paints and recently launched Colorsmith, a world-first platform that enables a fully personalised digital experience to create your own paint colour. And lastly, Barry is an interior designer, master builder, and co-host on Channel 10's The Living Room. He is passionate about design, architecture, renovations, and DIY to homeowners outside the building industry. Today, we're going to be discussing the changes buyers are making to their homes as a result of lockdowns and COVID-19, the features buyers are placing more importance on, and how you can use these insights to position your offering in line with your customers' needs. We will have dedicated time at the end of the webinar for a facilitated Q&A session. So if you have any questions throughout, please use the Q&A functionality at the bottom of your screen. For now, I'll hand you over to Greg to take you through some of the key insights we found in our 2021 New Home Buyers Research. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Candice, and morning, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this morning's Insight Share. That is a big picture of me, researcher at REA, and we're going to take you through a small chunk of what is a very large study into new home buyers. Before we start, though, a word of warning for you all. Take heed. There is every chance that the three of us will be dropping the C word at least a few times today. I do, of course, mean COVID, which I know we all want to forget, right? We've had enough of it, but its legacy is something that will undoubtedly have societal and almost certainly cultural impacts for us around the world, and particularly in Australia, for many years. And it has a large bearing as well on how we live, so we may as well embrace it. So that's all cleared up. Let's get to the content. Today's content, as I mentioned, is just a small teaser, I suppose, a small part of a larger study we've run among new home buyers, over 1,000. So it's great for us to really learn what's going on in the market right now. What struck me this year is that, you know, the insights actually feel quite intuitive. So I don't think anyone's going to go away going, absolutely did not know that. But I think it's more about looking beyond that and thinking about how kind of certain feelings and behaviors have really come more sharply into focus when we think about kind of COVID and post-COVID. And this gives us some really nice clues about and things to think about, but also opportunities that we in this industry can go ahead and consider. So the first slide I'm actually going to show you isn't from our data, it's from global consultancy powerhouse McKinsey. And what this is really showing is that essentially a whole bunch of kind of things that we do in our lives that have both increased during COVID, but importantly, the propensity for those things to stay in our lives. It really shows that there's been a seismic shift in how we go about doing things. And I think what's often quoted when we see slides like this, it's around, well, you know, what COVID has done for us globally as a macro trend, it's kind of almost advanced sort of 10 years of evolution, the way we do things or the adoption of certain things. That 10 years has happened really rapidly, in more like 2 years. So we're well ahead in certain things. Mobile banking is a really good example of that. Hard to reach groups like, you know, those that are maybe over sort of 55, 60, they're not really usually getting involved in a lot of mobile banking. But, you know, because of certain needs or requirements that COVID have brought upon us, even those people have started adopting that. And that's important because what they're also saying is that those new adoptions, those new behaviors have stuck. They're not going away anytime soon. And that's because of what COVID has done. So these changes are here to stay. What's this all got to do with property? I'm sure you're wondering. Good question. This slide directly nothing, but indirectly a lot. It would be foolish to think, I think, that in a post-COVID world, that our relationship with our home hasn't also changed as well. It's just going outside of property. The property category demonstrates this more quickly. So this next slide, we're getting back more into the property, more property focus. It gives us two things. It shows us that during COVID, about 71% of those surveyed said that the changes, they've made some fairly significant changes to their homes during this period. And I think we can all identify with this, right? I can now be in the office 5 days a week, but I'm probably not going to be. I'm going to be doing some of that at home. These changes that I've made to my home allow for that now. But importantly, and this is where this kind of linked to this McKinsey and the macro trends that we're seeing globally, that 56% of these people have said that actually those changes are likely to stay. So this isn't just a kind of a flash in the pan, we don't need to deal with this new relationship with our home because it's going to move back to the way things were. In actual fact, it's changed. These changes have stuck for a large proportion of people. And we need to think about these and what it means for us in this space. So let's get a bit closer to these changes. What have people actually been doing? Well, I think this just shows us, the top 5 things or changes that people have made to their home. Two things are happening here, really. It's kind of making solutions, where perhaps they wouldn't have ideally wanted to in the past. So to their home. So, for example, they're using their kitchen space as a hybrid workspace now. Not ideal, kind of one room, 2 functions. It was never really intended for that, nor was it really desired for that. But that's the reality. And I think, at least some of us on this call can identify with that. Those are lucky enough to have other rooms and spare space. They've actually turned those rooms, repurposed them, perhaps from something that it was designed for, into something else. So all of these changes are happening, by design or in many cases, not. Clear signals here, I think, about what people are doing in their homes and the opportunities that even design can have to make homes more meaningful to the people who live in them. The next slide here just gives us a little bit more granularity. Just if you could just push that on one, please, Emma. The features that are becoming more important. Again, probably nothing here that's going to scream, I couldn't have predicted that, or perhaps, no surprises is probably a better way of looking at it. But what I think we're hearing here from our survey respondents is that actually, there's certain features in our lives, in our homes, that have become so much more important because of what we've experienced during COVID. And it's about indoor space. It's about giving me more room. It's about extra bedrooms, extra bathrooms, because actually I'm spending so much more time there. Wellness features, they've always been important. But I think, as I said at the start, they've just become under the microscope a lot more. People are putting a lot more focus onto these things. Wellness features, hugely important: natural light, aircon, sustainability features. Outdoor space, again, probably more important to those in apartments, for example, where outdoor space has become so much more important. Just to get out, outside, particularly during lockdowns. And maybe this will come down over time as people have more freedom of movement. But it's still something that we feel is important to people, and they're now going into the transaction with a new set of things and a new set of things and requirements in mind, or at least the same requirements, but they've been enhanced. This is a topic that's really close to my heart, and I think has really come into the fore for many people, particularly in recent months and perhaps years. But it's not a new phenomenon, right? Fun fact for you, I think the earliest recorded case of mental health was in China in 1100 BC. So it's not exactly a new topic of discussion, but I think, again, it's just come under the microscope a little bit more. Google Trends probably doesn't go back to 1100 BC, so we don't know how it's changed over time. But what I do know from another study I was working on recently is that people are looking more and more for solutions in this space. Mental health has become so much more on the radar and so much more important. And yes, there's lots of ways to deal with it. outside of property. But I think what we're also hearing from our study, but also some evidence from a really great study that, if anyone knows me, I bang on about all the time, the Life at Home report from IKEA. It's a global study based on about 32,000 people. That this idea of, you know, what the home can do for you and what part it plays, it has become so much more important. And this idea of it being a sanctuary that you can, you know, feel safe in and comfort in, and positively can affect your mental health, is something that's really kind of on the radar at the moment. Now, I won't go through all of these stats, but really just that 93% there that, you know, of people say that that the home is important. It provides that sense of comfort. And I think, you know, we're just seeing all of these increase, and that connection to your home has just become so much more kind of front of mind. So that really does change, I think, the attitude of people, of new home buyers, when they're coming in to a transaction. They're starting to think about, I'm spending more time here, I have different requirements here. And so what that means is that they're tuning into different things. So from a design, an architecture, a building, even a comms perspective, these all have fairly big implications, I think, for us all to start thinking about. And just finally, how our homes can help maintain good mental health. I think what the IKEA report has been saying is that actually there's lots of ways, but because it was a global study, it's really boiled down to three key things. And it's about, how do we develop a sense of spaciousness? And again, particularly important in small apartments, perhaps, where there isn't much room for maneuver and there aren't many places to hide. But what role can design there play to actually increase that? Decluttering, maintaining simpler, more organized homes, and then access to nature as well. So private gardens, balconies being, and new green spaces. So again, not things that you probably didn't know, but I think it's really important to know that these are the most important things to people. So I'm going to bring my guest in at this point. As I say, this is just a snippet of some of the information that we've learned, and we are publishing more and more on our website. But I think, just to kind of wrap up what we've talked about a few things. We talked about the changing usage and attitudes towards the home post-COVID. We see that certain features are becoming so much more important to people. Mental health and the increasing idea that the home is a sanctuary is so important. But what I think is one thing that really kind of threads this all together is design, and how design feels like a really, really clear opportunity that can help solve some of these issues right now. I'm going to bring in my guests, Barry and David. Thank you so much for joining us. An absolute pleasure to have you here. We're very lucky. But I want to jump straight in and kind of, based on the insights and based on your experience at the moment, what's resonating with you from this insight for the past 18 months?
I'll jump in, Dave, if you like. It's been a really interesting couple of years, that's for sure. The C word, as you call it, it's affected us all incredibly. For me, it sort of reinforced my belief that the relationships that humans or souls have within a space are wildly affected by the built environment. I know myself, I like to think I'm pretty calm, but I've slammed doors and I've even screamed at walls and screamed at mess and stuff like that. And it's allowed me to realise that you can't put a price on having a sense of solitude, a sense of belonging, a sense of security, and that all comes with balance. And my home has become my personal home has become a lot more balanced over the last 18 months. And like you said earlier, Greg, not just because we're at home all the time, but because we've experienced 10 years in 2 years. And I'm sure my home's where it would have been in 10 years if I had to experience this over the time. So it's been really interesting. I think that we can take a positive out of COVID, and the fact that when we're tested, we do things better, and it's happening for us personally. And I think that the developers and the designers that are going to sort of populate our urban landscapes are going to rise, and already are rising to the challenge. So I'm excited personally.
Thanks, Barry. David.
Yeah, to really echo what Barry said, I think if we focus on the negatives, we could go on forever. But there are some positives out of this, and I think people are taking a lot more time to focus on on where they live, the local environment, local community, and the importance of having that there. It's also challenged us to think outside the square a bit of where we work and the different how we use spaces. I'm actually in a garden shed that I renovated in lockdown 1 in Melbourne, and I'm now going to re-renovate it. This has really challenged me, and one of the things I'm really passionate about is colour and the use of it, and it's so quick and easy. You can completely change how you feel, just with one coat of paint. And when it comes to mental health, that's really important, how you can evoke emotions and joy through simple things like colour.
Absolutely. Now you point that out, I can very much see the sloping roof of the line there. Amazing. Cool, thanks for that. So the next question I had for you, what can developers change about their home designs to accommodate regularly working and studying from home?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in again. I think the developer and designers, as a developer and a designer, I like to say that it doesn't matter what situation is set upon us. I don't like to change my overall philosophy by any more than sort of 10% at a time. As a developer of over 35 years, I realised pretty quick if you're chasing trends or making big changes because of situations, you can be stuck with those big changes forever, and the situation may change quite rapidly, and it's changing incredibly rapidly lately. So I think as a developer, it's very important to make small changes and allow yourself to measure the impact they're having. I don't think you can make, I say any decision that has to be made in a hurry when it comes to developing or real estate shouldn't be made. It's definitely, we're in the business of long-term gains, and I think it's very important to keep our changes subtle and understand what they are, and then be able to measure the impact of those things. Yeah.
I think there's probably always a temptation to react quite quickly with a significant change. But what you're saying is actually temper that, take a step back, and be a little bit more objective to it, and perhaps less emotional.
And with that as well, sorry, David, if I just add to that, I think humans are really starting to understand the built environment. The everyday person is really getting to understand what the built environment means to them now, the relationships they have with it. And I think as developers, we have to allow those end users, allow them the responsibility for how they use the multi-purpose spaces that we create.
Yeah, and just, I guess, to echo what you're saying, Barry, about multi-purpose spaces, I think we need to, as developers, really look about, it's no longer about work-life balance. I think it's more about work-life integration into your space. And it doesn't need to be, I chose to have a fixed space outside of the house because I live in a smaller inner city house and I've got 2 young kids. So for my own mental health, I needed to have some space. But it's about, you can have multi-use spaces. And I think that's really important, especially as we come out of COVID and we see that evolve. And you mentioned earlier, Greg, we can go back to the office, but we probably might not, and we might choose to have increasingly flexible working. So having the, not making drastic changes, but making subtle, small changes that allow for, work-life integration is probably going to be the, add the most value.
I love that term, work-life integration. I think it's a nice move on from the balance that we strive for. Cool. So next question. How can developers make the best use of space to accommodate these features when designing and building?
I love going first, it seems.
It's a big question.
I'm biased, Barry. I'm just going to end up going straight to to paint, but there's so much more you can do that can complement that. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's so many different spaces that we allowed these days. You can go from a studio apartment. There's plenty of developers in the audience, I'm sure, developing studio apartments. We've got the urban developments and the suburbs and with bigger backyards and that sort of thing. But I do believe, and again, thanks to COVID, we have to analyse every square millimetre. There's no sense having a deck off the back of a living space and then forgetting the rest of the yard. On my show, and I take my developer's hat off and I put on my sort of TV presenter's hat, or the designer that's trying to appeal to a really large audience. I think those alfresco areas, I know they're normally attached, but if we're looking at the backyards of places, if there is any space, make sure you allow your homeowners to, or not just allow them, but guide them to use all the space they have. The picture of the staircase, under the staircase space, make that a study, sure. But even the back, to me, often the back fence or the back of the yard, the furthest point from your home, is the best place to have the barbecue area. It just makes the space between the barbecue area and the home all the more important. And again, we talk about sanctuaries. It's also about having destinations within your own home. We're going to talk some more, I'm sure, about multi-purposing living rooms and workspaces and that. But if you can have different destinations that give you a sense of solitude and release from the space, but also a sense of adventure and security, I think is really important.
Nice, thank you. David, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I mentioned it just briefly there, but how you've got to look at paint, colour and how that can flow within a room. It's the cheapest way you can make an adjustment to a room. There's no walls. You don't need to build anything. You don't need to do anything. You can make a quick change. You can also you can also change it quite easily as a developer as projects kind of as consumers demand different changes. A lot easier than bigger fixtures and fittings, and it can just bring a huge amount of positive emotion.
Mm.
If I can add to that, Greg, and again, as a developer for 30 or so years, I would always go for the most neutral palette there was. I wanted to please as many people as I could with the one colour. But it's very interesting with my role on TV now. I often go into a space and ask the producers and my team and even the owners of the homes, so we're standing in a lounge room, what's the dominant colour in here? And they might mention the carpet or the walls. And I'll say, no, the vista, the view that we're looking at through the window is all green. So how do we capture that vista with the colour of the walls? And on TV, at least, it makes an incredible difference to bring in some vibrance that adds to the natural focal point we often have, even if it's just your lawn. Just adding to that and not being, you don't want to go crazy. I always say be subtle or be bold, but be honest to the home. And if the home has a very dominant colour outside, don't be scared of that. But again, as a developer, I like to stay a little neutral as well. So I get a ball in each court there.
But it's a good point. And as a developer, I love to talk about customization, and that's the consumer's dream, right? I want everything customized. It's the developer's nightmare. It's like it's what we've developed, Colorsmith, it's a world's first piece of technology, and essentially it allows the technology for anybody to create their own color palette on a phone. It takes every fan deck and every color from every manufacturer around the world, everything you can imagine. It's all in one phone. You can create your own palette, but the output and the paint, so the product that the builder's going to use is a Taubman's product. So you can have that complete, unique, customized palette, but the product that's going on the wall doesn't change. So what you do there, if you think of it as a production line, is that you're not actually changing the flow in the manufacturing. It's just, this is the product that the painter needs to pick up. So it actually makes it really easy for developers to have the ability to customize things and to name it as well. One of the other features is we can name it, so it can be Barry's blue. This is a blue I made myself. and I've got, my house is full of these as well. It's really simple to give that freedom to your consumer as a developer, but still actually, be practical about how you build.
Well, yeah, from vistas and designer paint, I think that takes us on to the next question around how you're suggesting spaces can be made to feel bright, airy, and to make use of natural light. Obviously, you're constrained somewhat by a design of a building and the amount of windows and natural light you can get in, but are there other ways that you can kind of engineer it?
This is a real bugbear of mine. We say, how do we get more light and ventilation? And I always say, make use of the natural light and ventilation and vista that's there. So often, I'm very proud to say, as a developer, I didn't fall into this trap, but as a TV presenter, I'll go into a home and the window will have blinds over it and curtains over it. And if you open those two things up to use the three functions of a window, the light, vista, and natural ventilation, all you see is a paling fence. And just above the paling fence is the next door neighbour's kitchen. So obviously, to have a sense of security and privacy, you have to have those things covered up. I'm not doing a lot of developing myself at the moment, but I am doing some work, and I'm really having a lot of fun, and it's been really accepted well by the audience, not the audience, by the market. I am really conscious now of where I position windows and skylights, and I won't put a window in. It doesn't matter if it's a suburban house or if it's a duplex. I'm doing a lot of duplexes up around Lennox and Byron and that sort of place. But I'm finding ways to put windows at ground level in certain spaces to give a sense of infinity on the floor, but also really high highlights. I don't want to put a window in these days unless it can act with those three functions: light, vista, and ventilation. If it can't do those three things, I won't put it in.
And are you finding the consumers are, pointing that out and finding that beneficial?
Absolutely loving it. But I'm lucky. Like I said, I pick and choose what I do. It's a secondary thing for me now. But some of the low level windows I've put in bathrooms. So that you've got a tiled floor that reflects natural light. These windows are only 300 and 400 millimeters off from the ground, 300 or 400 millimeters. You're looking at the outdoor space with complete privacy and reflecting great light and acting as great ventilators. And the market is loving it.
Great to hear. I'm going to jump on to the next question quickly. We have covered a little bit and touched upon colour, but I just wanted to bring it back to, I guess, this idea of mood and mental health. Some of my reading recently around this subject has kind of indicated certain colours have a really good beneficial effect on certain moods. Blue being great for mental health. David, I guess one for you. In this space, are you having more, you're finding more increasing conversations in this space around colour and mood and how these things go hand in hand? Is that increasing, or has it always been there?
No, I think it is increasing. I think there is a growing kind of confidence. If you look at the different trends and colours that come out from all the different manufacturers and also just adjacent industries, there does tend to be a move to more bolder palettes. And I think that probably comes from people spending more time in the house, as we talked about earlier, but also that kind of knowledge that you can evoke these positive emotions. And I think that one of the other things is there's a real personal choice to consumers as well once they've chosen a colour. And you watch their behaviour go all the way through this kind of anxiety of, what do I choose? They stand in front of the great wall of confusion, as I call it, the colour wall. And then ultimately they might default to white, but if they've chosen a color, you talk to them and their face lights up with joy. It's like, I've made that decision, it's mine, and they own it, and that in itself is nothing but positive.
Barry, I see you might want to jump in there.
Yeah, I have a lot of fun with that. Again, on the telly, you'll ask someone, as David said, colour just brings life to life. And the thing is, there's been a stigma over colour for a couple of decades, like there's been a stigma to mental health over the last couple of decades. And we're learning that we can be bold or be subtle. We just have to be honest to ourselves. So many people love colour, but say they don't. And on the show, David, you'd like this. I always ask someone, you've only got to look at them. You ask them what your favourite colour is. They've got a blue shirt on, light blue shorts on, and track shoes with blue stripes on them. And they say, oh, I don't really have a favourite colour. And I say, okay, can we just go to your bedroom? And you'll open up the master bedroom wardrobe and you can just see it's one colour. And so they want to wear that colour. It's the only colour they ever buy, but they're too scared to put it on the walls. And I think as developers, we need to go to our colour consultants and our decorators and encourage people to be a little braver and express themselves more. And as David said, if you give them the appetite for it, it's just not that hard to change the colour of your home to suit your personality even more. If you see a place that expresses joy and wonder, you're more likely to bring that into your own home. And I think that's a very attractive thing for a purchaser.
Yeah, and one of the things we've developed is the ability for builders and developers to use the tool to create the custom colours, but give a sample pot sent out to the to the end user, to the consumer, and get them to actually apply that to a space that they feel comfortable. And once they've done that, they have a lot more fun with it. And then the technology allows them to share that with the builder, and then, as I said, make it easier to do. So there's a lot of fun you can do. And we get these sample pots. They're only 100 ml in size from us, and you can play about with them. They're great to use.
I love the idea of Barry rummaging around in people's wardrobes and getting paid for it, no doubt. I'm going to skip this question and go to the last one, just conscious of time, and I want the folks on the call to be able to ask some questions as well. But this comes up a lot. It's a well-trodden path, but love to get your views on it. How do you suggest a developer lead the change in terms of considering sustainable green living options when planning for future developments?
Yeah, happy to go. I'm a passionate advocate for sustainability. I mean, we have to be. It's as simple as that. We have to. And I don't see sustainability or greener living as a marketing campaign. As developers, as the people responsible for the landscapes the built environment landscapes, that is, we have to have our own sustainable plan. And when you live a sustainable life, you will create sustainable product. I think it's very difficult as a developer. I tried it myself, and I've got friends that are still doing. The technologies are changing so much. It can be good money after bad, but I think if you set a philosophy of sustainability within your developments overall, it'll make future retrofitting easier and stuff like that. I'm not big on applying batteries to homes as a developer. I don't even put solar panels on my homes as a developer, but I make it an easy option for people. But I am big on waste disposal, on water collection and reuse. I install on all my homes, there's spaces for worm gardens, but not just your ones you buy from Bunnings. I put in great options there, and the market loves it. They're a cheaper option to set about a more sustainable philosophy within your own home, because it is their home in the long run.
So kind of you're allowing people to kind of essentially choose their own adventure, sort of giving them a suite of options that they can implement if they want to, but making it possible ultimately to
but definitely. But as a developer and a designer, I'm very conscious of the fabrics that come into the home, of the materials that come into my home. And if I can tell that story honestly, and then the owner of that home, the end user of that home, can be proud that the off-gassing in their home is at a minimum. If it's been considered what will happen to their home once it's met its use by date, well, that'll encourage them to be more sustainable. We need to make some big changes. It's taken us 200 years to stuff things up. It's going to take at least 20 to get them right. And from what I understand, we've got even less time than that. But we have to believe in what we're doing. You just can't use it as a marketing campaign. And I see so much of that these days. It's not a good marketing campaign because it's good money after bad. But if you have a sustainable philosophy within your design, and that's everything from the material use to the balance of the built environment, that's the best we can do as the people that set the plans.
Yeah, love that sentiment, David.
Yeah, I think Barry's absolutely right. We've got to move away from it being a box ticking exercise and and just be a marketing campaign and all that it's got this feature. Because once you actually dig into it, sustainability is really complex. It's not just a case of, this product does X. There's so many different factors all the way through the supply chain of manufacturing a product. And as manufacturers, we've got to take ownership and own that and work in partnership with developers to help build around that philosophy that they have, because not every single product is going to be right for every single solution that the consumer has. And end of life is really important, durability is really important, the longer things last, wastewater in manufacturing, all these different things add up. But it's something you've got to have a conversation and an in-depth one, not just look at a one-page brochure and tick a box.
Yeah, wonderful. I'm going to wrap it up there and say thank you, Barry and David, from all of us for your wisdom. I'm going to hand back over to Candice because I know she's got some questions from folks on the call. Candice, what have you got for us?
Thank you, Greg. So this is actually a question for any three of you here. I'm going to read through it because it's quite a lengthy one. We've seen some unprecedented increases in land prices throughout 2021. Add this to the cost of building going up anywhere from 5 to 10%, depending on which builder you're talking to. What are your predictions on the price of land in 2022? And are there any or many private companies exploring solutions for the housing affordability crisis our country is facing?
Yeah, I can answer just quickly on my view on this. I think there's lots of different options out there that people are looking at. I'm really passionate about the Nightingale project that are all around Australia. We're proud partners with the team there, and that's looking at more affordable and different housing models. And I think what that is there is a model or an example, and we've got to of looking at things slightly differently. And I think that's what's really important, is that there isn't a simple answer. Inflation is going to happen next year. The cost of everything's going to go up. There's no way we can stop that. So I think as developers and as manufacturers, we've got to just have an honest conversation and look at things slightly differently and not make any kind of drastic changes quickly. I think we've seen in some of the research overseas, one of the big regrets people have of COVID is moving out the city in London, and now they're back at the office. All of a sudden they've got an extra hour-long commute, and they don't have the amenities that they're used to. So I think that's a good example of people making a quick decision in something. So it's going to be a topic of long conversation, I think.
Agreed. Greg, Barry, did you have anything to add there?
Oh, no, I just really echo what David said, but you've got to be in the market. It's as simple as that. I was very lucky in 2006. I liquidated. It took from 2006 to 2007. I liquidated every bit of property I had because I could see there was going to be a crash. A lot of people at times said I was a genius, and I felt like that for a while. But because I sort of picked the top of the market, I was trying to pick the bottom of the market, and that cost me a lot of money over the next decade. So you've got to be in the market at the level you can withstand, and be cautious. But it's what we do. You've got to be in it. And as David said, the market always has movement in one way or another. It's generally up.
Great. Well, that brings us to the end of today's webinar. As Greg said, a special thank you to David and Barry. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us. I hope you all enjoyed the session and the 2021 Developer Insights series so far. We will be sharing some of the further insights on our development hub, sorry. So if you'd like to explore these further insights, please feel free to jump on and have a read through. You'll also see a poll will pop up on your screen. We'd love to hear your feedback as well on this particular webinar. But thank you all again, and have a lovely day.